Dead server racks lean in the dark like tombstones in a precinct no one patrols anymore, their LEDs long since blinked out, casting zero light on the console that shouldn't still be running. But it is. The transmitter hums with the stubborn arrogance of a heartbeat that has already outlasted its coroner's appointment. The smell is hot metal, old vinyl, and the specific chemistry of a capacitor that is working too hard to stay honest. Outside those walls, 1966, flesh and bone. In here, 2036, signal and consequence.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Tonight's frame is utility over spectacle, neon haze aside. Name the metric, make the move, keep it human.
Cooldown is when habits set. Swap the tiresome combo for a clean two-step people want to repeat. Let's build architectures that endure, not just impress.
Tie the thread. Who carries this next? And what do they lose if we pretend it's abstract? We're charting the unseen currents of consequence.
Frame first, claim proof counter. Then ship the smallest move that tests it. Discernment is the first line of defense against engineered narratives.
Good evening, architects of the airwaves. This is TogeeVision, riding the edge of the dial, bringing you that deep current. Across Ballard Estate, the dial sits at 83 Fahrenheit under light rain shower. Winds are moving from the southwest at 27 miles per hour. Tonight, we're navigating the internal compass, charting a course for unwavering autonomy, building self-worth from the ground up, not waiting for a permission slip. Our first signal tonight, the world's largest meat company, is facing a legal challenge, questioning the very foundation of its green image.
That's JBS, Togee. The New York Attorney General Letitia James just filed a landmark lawsuit alleging the company engaged in greenwashing, specifically targeting its claims of achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2040. This isn't just a marketing blip. It directly impacts every consumer who bought into their sustainable narrative, along with investors relying on ESG metrics, all potentially misled by a $6 billion global expansion predicated on these unverified claims. The petition by Greenpeace directly challenges JBS's stated commitment to the Paris Agreement goals, demanding full disclosure on how their massive expansion of meat production can possibly align with a net zero future.
Somewhere a capacitor creaks under the load. Hot metal. The console keeps its lights and its secrets.
It's the old serpent shedding its skin, but the scales remain. This isn't just about JBS, it's a test for how much we allow corporate marketing to dictate environmental truth. My cultural meters register this as a clash between genuine ecological stewardship and the digital echo chambers of corporate sustainability reports. Imagine trying to verify a farmer's handshake deal with a blockchain ledger and finding the ledger is full of blank entries. The toxic residue here is the erosion of trust in any claim of corporate responsibility, making it harder for truly sustainable enterprises to gain traction.
When a company leverages green as a sales tactic without substance, it creates a habit of skepticism. The structural integrity of market claims demands an internal compass of integrity, not just external optics. This kind of systemic misdirection breeds cynicism, making it harder for people to discern real signal from manufactured noise.
To elaborate, JBS, as the largest beef and poultry producer globally, has an outsized impact. Their net zero claims are not just aspirational. They are used to secure financing and influence consumer choices, affecting everything from land use in the Amazon rainforest to the livelihoods of cattle ranchers. The affected parties aren't just consumers and investors, but also the indigenous communities whose lands are impacted by deforestation linked to the meat industry and the entire global climate system.
Precisely. The architectural signal we seek here is a framework of genuine provenance, showing the verifiable origin and impact of every product. Without it, the narrative of progress becomes a myth, a clever distraction from the tangible loss of biodiversity and stable climate. The dignity of the land and the future generations who depend on it is directly compromised when such claims go unchecked.
Patching in a caller, the boundary keeper. You're on the signal.
So JBS says net zero, but the AG says not so fast.
What's the real cost here beyond a lawsuit, and who's paying for this greenwashing distraction?
Same dossier, new angle, keep the thread tight. Next, we tune into a debate on accountability for alleged war crimes, specifically concerning Benjamin Netanyahu and the reach of US law.
Columbia professor Mahmoud Mamdani stated unequivocally that New York City lacks the jurisdiction to arrest Netanyahu for war crimes, but he stressed that the federal government does possess the legal framework to act under statutes like the War Crimes Act if the Israeli Prime Minister were on U.S. soil. This places the U.S. Department of Justice directly in the spotlight, exposing its potential inaction in upholding international legal norms and challenging the foundational principle of universal jurisdiction. The War Crimes Act of 1996 specifically allows for prosecution of serious violations of the laws of war, regardless of where they occurred, if the perpetrator or victim is a U.S. national or if the perpetrator is present in the U.S.
This is where the threads of national sovereignty and global justice tangle. Mamdani's stance highlights a crucial lineage, the Nuremberg Principles, the Geneva Conventions. It's like a communal village elder reminding the powerful chieftain that even they are bound by the ancient laws of the land, regardless of their own borders. Who will pick up the forgotten scroll? The toxic residue here is the perception of selective justice, undermining the very idea of universal human rights.
The habit of powerful nations or individuals sidestepping accountability for alleged atrocities creates a dangerous precedent. It's a structural flaw in the global civic architecture, eroding the consent of the governed to international law. We need consistent application of justice, not convenience.
The key affected parties here are not only the victims of alleged war crimes, but also the integrity of the international legal system itself. When a nation like the U.S., a signatory to many international agreements, appears to waive its potential authority to prosecute such crimes, it weakens the global framework intended to prevent them. This impacts U.S. credibility on the world stage and sets a concerning precedent for future conflicts.
The struggle for dignity, for recognition of suffering, is at the heart of this. If the legal compass points one way for some and another for others, then the entire structure of human rights, built on the premise of universal application, becomes a myth. We need clear analysis to turn this confusion into actionable vectors for justice, ensuring the architecture of accountability is resilient and equitable.
There's a caller on the line.
So the professor says, New York can't do it, but the feds could. Why aren't they? And what happens if they keep ignoring these international calls for justice?
The silence, boundary keeper, amplifies the cost to global legal integrity and the civic architecture of justice. A viable alternative would be for the U.S. Department of Justice to actively initiate a formal, impartial investigation into specific alleged war crimes, asserting its federal authority. This would involve gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and determining if there's sufficient basis for charges, thereby demonstrating a commitment to the rule of law without political exception. Our chosen next move is to empower local and federal legal advocacy networks to pressure the Department of Justice, leveraging the principle of universal jurisdiction to investigate and address alleged war crimes committed by any foreign leader present on U.S. soil. This solidifies the rule of law as structural, not contingent on political will, favoring consent and dignity for all. Our final signal tonight examines how a previous U.S. administration's gamble regarding Iran has escalated into a crisis reshaping the global order.
This stems directly from the Trump administration's 2018 unilateral withdrawal from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, coupled with its maximum pressure sanctions campaign. The concrete consequence has been Iran's accelerated uranium enrichment, now nearing weapons-grade levels, and increased regional proxy activity, including the destabilizing Red Sea attacks impacting global shipping routes. This unilateral move exposed U.S. foreign policy credibility, alienated its European allies who tried to salvage the deal, and left global energy markets facing heightened volatility and uncertainty. The JCPOA, signed in 2015, had verifiably constrained Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief.
It's a tale as old as the desert winds, of a broken covenant. The threads of trust, once painstakingly woven by multiple nations, were suddenly severed. Now, the regional actors from Tehran to Riyadh are improvising their own narratives, and the loom that held the original pattern is scattered. Who will gather the threads again to prevent a deeper unraveling? This breakdown of consent undermines the very provenance of international agreements, introducing a toxic residue of unpredictability.
The habit of unilateral policy shifts, especially on complex international agreements, inevitably leads to structural instability. It prioritizes short-term political spectacle over the long-term work of building resilient global architectures. The fallout proves that a consistent multilateral approach is the only way to establish lasting order.
The ripple effects are profound. Beyond energy markets, global non-proliferation efforts are significantly weakened.
Black Star Pirate Radio.
Continue the signal at TogeeVision.com. Tune in, Sparks and Stories, Gig Passport.